Pepsi is one of the most sold soft drinks in the world, and with that title, there is bound to be at least a few flavors of Pepsi that you've never heard of. Today, I am going to be covering the Pepsi Iceberg. This iceberg chart covers well-known flavors of Pepsi like Crystal Pepsi and Pepsi Twist, to more obscure flavors you probably haven't heard of. This chart also covers most things relating to Pepsi itself. And with all that said, let's get into the Pepsi Iceberg. Pepsi Twist. The first entry on this iceberg, Pepsi Twist, is a lemon flavor of Pepsi. This was first released in the United States on July 12, 2001, and brought back multiple times before getting discontinued in 2006. Since then, this flavor has been brought back numerous times in multiple countries like the UK, Brazil, Portugal, Latvia, and more. Brad's Drink. This entry refers to the original name for Pepsi in 1893, Brad's Drink. Caleb Bradham, the creator of Pepsi, originally sold Pepsi under the name Brad's Drink at his drugstore in North Carolina. Brad's Drink was renamed to Pepsi Cola in 1898. Caffeine-free Pepsi. This entry is pretty self-explanatory. This is just Pepsi without any caffeine. This variant of Pepsi was introduced under the name Pepsi Free in 1982. In 1987, Pepsi Free was rebranded to Caffeine-Free Pepsi, and it's been known by that name ever since. Pepsi Points Case. In 1996, PepsiCo ran a promotional points program where customers could earn points through buying Pepsi products and then exchange those points for physical prizes. For example, you could get a t-shirt and stuff like that. In order to advertise the program, Pepsi released TV commercials. In one of the commercials, they offered a fighter jet in exchange for 7 million Pepsi points. A 21-year-old business student named John Leonard heard about this. John found a loophole in the program where you could buy Pepsi points for 10 cents each, and the student somehow convinced investors to give him a loan for $700,000. The student sent a $700,000 check to PepsiCo, thinking that he would get the fighter jet. Instead of this, PepsiCo rejected the offer and told him that the fighter jet in the commercial was not for sale. John proceeded to sue PepsiCo, alleging breach of contract and fraud. John didn't end up winning the lawsuit, and that's essentially the whole story. What's interesting is that this case is frequently used in law school to teach about the standard of contract law. Madonna controversy. In 1989, Pepsi Cola announced that they had signed Madonna for a $5 million deal for Madonna to star in a Pepsi commercial along with her song Like a Prayer. A day after the Pepsi commercial aired, Madonna released the music video for Like a Prayer. The music video was extremely controversial because of its depiction of religious imagery and racial themes. This led to Christian groups like the Vatican officially condemning the broadcast of the music video and calling for a boycott of Pepsi. This made no sense in my opinion, because the Pepsi commercial and the music video had nothing similar about them in terms of subject matter. Due to the pressure from boycotts, Pepsi canceled the campaign, but allowed Madonna to keep the $5 million from the original deal. Pepsiman. Created in the mid-1990s, Pepsiman is the official mascot for Pepsi. Originally, 12 commercials were produced featuring Pepsiman, and in all of the commercials, he appears with Pepsi to give to thirsty people. Pepsiman also appears in the Sega Saturn version of the 1994 video game Fighting Vipers. In 1999, a Pepsiman video game was released. The premise of the game is similar to the commercials. In the game, the player plays as Pepsiman, and the player has to go through obstacles to deliver Pepsi to a thirsty person. The game was considered a financial failure. 1923 bankruptcy. This entry refers to how the Pepsi Cola company went into bankruptcy in 1923. The company went bankrupt due to the rapidly changing sugar prices after World War I. Pepsi Cola's assets were purchased by Charles Guth, who was the president of Loft, the world's largest producer and seller of candy in the 1920s. Angry Birds. This entry refers to a marketing promotion and collaboration between Pepsi and the video game Angry Birds in Latin America. The promotion included Angry Birds themed tazos, which, if you don't know what tazos are, they were promotional toys that were distributed with PepsiCo products. Originally, tazos were added to the products of the Mexican snack company Sabritas, but were later distributed in many different countries. Another thing included in the Angry Birds campaign was an exclusive Pepsi-themed Angry Birds minigame, where players could earn prizes if they got a high score in the game. The name of the campaign, Vuela Tazos, translates in English as Flying Tazos, referring to the toys used in the campaign. Pepsi Pineapple. Pepsi Pineapple is a Little Caesars exclusive pineapple-flavored variant of Pepsi. It was originally released in 2020 in regular stores, but was discontinued shortly after. In the summer of 2023, it was released exclusively at Little Caesars. A year later, it was released again at Little Caesars. Nitro Pepsi. Imagine regular Pepsi, but instead of containing carbon dioxide like most sodas, Nitro Pepsi contains nitrogen gas. The purpose of this was because nitrogen bubbles are much smaller than carbon dioxide bubbles, which gives the drink a much smoother feel. Nitro Pepsi also had a vanilla variant. I remember seeing this in stores myself a few years ago, but I unfortunately never got to try it, as Nitro Pepsi was discontinued in January 2025. Pilk. This entry refers to a drink mixture of Pepsi and milk. That sounds absolutely disgusting. Pilk is a type of dirty soda, which is a drink that consists of soda mixed with cream, milk, and similar stuff like that. Pepsi even made a viral advertising campaign for Pilk in 2022. Pepsi Challenge. The Pepsi Challenge is a marketing campaign created by Pepsi created in the 1970s. The premise of the campaign is that people were asked to do a blind taste test of Pepsi and Coca-Cola. A Pepsi representative would set up a table with two unlabeled cups, one with Pepsi and one with Coke. People would taste both of the cups and then choose which drink they considered better. The results of the test turned out to be that Pepsi was preferred more than Coke by Americans. This campaign has been featured in many TV commercials. Coca-Cola's response to the Pepsi Challenge was the infamous launch of New Coke in 1985, which, if you've seen my Coca-Cola Iceberg video, you will know how this was a mistake. If you haven't watched that video, go watch it after this one. Pepsi Max. Pepsi Max is a higher caffeine and low-calorie version of Pepsi marketed as having the maximum taste for a low-calorie soda. It was first launched in 1993 in Australia, the UK, and Italy. By the end of 1994, it was available in over 20 countries. In the United States, Pepsi Max is known as Pepsi Zero Sugar. Pepsi Electric. In May 2024, Pepsi launched a limited edition blue citrus flavor of Pepsi called Pepsi Electric. It was exclusively launched in the UK for a year only, and is similar in looks to another flavor of Pepsi called Pepsi Blue, which I'll be talking about in the next layer of this iceberg. Pepsi Spire. Pepsi Spire is a touchscreen soda fountain created by Pepsi in 2014. Pepsi's main products are in the Pepsi Spire, including Pepsi and its diet and zero sugar versions, Starry, Tropicana, Mountain Dew, Mug Root Beer, and even more drinks. With all that said, it's finally time for the next layer.
So go ahead and pick the drink that lets you drink, young as you think. Yes, get the right one, the modern light one. Now it's Pepsi.
Marvel Pepsi cards. This entry refers to a trading card promotion that Pepsi did in collaboration with Marvel in 1994. The cards came with Pepsi products and were occasionally available through special promotions, depending on the store. These cards were mainly distributed in Latin American countries and were printed in Spanish. The original set of cards that came out in the 90s is sought after by fans and collectors. Pepsi Maple Syrup. Pepsi Maple Syrup was a maple syrup flavored variant of Pepsi created as a collaboration between IHOP and Pepsi. I assume this flavor was created with the dirty soda trend in mind, but Pepsi and maple syrup do not sound like a good combo. This was first introduced in March 2022 and was only available through a social media giveaway. It was re-released twice in 2024, one time in stores for a limited time and the other was released through another social media giveaway. Pepsi Woman. Pepsi Woman is an additional mascot for Pepsi and the girl version of Pepsiman. She serves the same role as Pepsiman, delivering Pepsi to thirsty people. Pepsi Woman only appeared in one TV commercial, specifically an ad for Diet Pepsi Twist. Crystal Pepsi. In the 1940s, a clear variant of Coca-Cola was created at the request of the Marshal of the Soviet Union, Georgy Zhukov. It tasted the same as the original Coca-Cola, but didn't have any coloring added to it. This formed the idea of colorless cola, and thus, the idea of Crystal Pepsi was born. Obviously, Crystal Pepsi was a clear version of Pepsi. Crystal Pepsi was marketed as a healthier alternative to Pepsi, with it having 20 less calories than the original Pepsi, and it's caffeine-free. Crystal Pepsi was successful at first, but it was discontinued only after 2 years. This is because of a variety of factors, but the main factor that played a role in the discontinuation of Crystal Pepsi was Coca-Cola's response to Crystal Pepsi, Tab Clear. After the launch of Crystal Pepsi, Coca-Cola decided to make their own clear soda in order to sabotage Crystal Pepsi. Basically, Tab Clear was diet, so arguably, Coca-Cola indirectly caused the discontinuation of Crystal Pepsi, because people also assumed that Crystal Pepsi was a diet soda, even though it wasn't. Crystal Pepsi was brought back in 2016, partly because of a YouTuber named LA Beast, who in 2013 made a video of himself drinking a bottle of 1990s Crystal Pepsi. This led to fans making petitions to bring back the drink, and the drink eventually returned. Pepsi Blue. A berry-flavored variant of Pepsi, Pepsi Blue was launched in mid-2002. Pepsi Blue was designed to attract teenagers with its unique flavor and bright color. PepsiCo had decided to make this flavor because of the successful launch of Mountain Dew Code Red the year before, and they wanted to make a flavor of Pepsi that had bright colors. Unfortunately, the flavor was discontinued 2 years later. It was brought back in 2021 for a limited time. Pepsi Blue is similar in color to another flavor released in 2024 called Pepsi Electric. The Coca-Cola Company was offered to buy Pepsi. This entry refers to the fact that throughout the 1920s and 1930s, Coca-Cola was offered 3 times to buy Pepsi, and each time they declined the offer. Wee Wee Chews. This entry refers to Pepsi Wee Wee Chews, a series of collectible figures released in the late 2000s in Mexico for Christmas. This was an advertising campaign in the holiday months for Pepsi. The term Wee Wee Chew comes from a Spanish transliteration of the English song We Wish You a Merry Christmas. I don't even know what these are supposed to be, but they look like little clowns with different designs. Pepsi Perfect. In the 1989 film Back to the Future Part 2, the character Marty McFly orders a futuristic Pepsi, which is served in a unique-looking bottle. In 2015, as a tribute to the movie, Pepsi released a limited edition real-world version of this known as Pepsi Perfect. Although it was just regular Pepsi with real sugar, the unique bottle shape and the fact that only around 6,500 bottles were produced, this made Pepsi Perfect an instant collector's item. Pepsi X. Pepsi X was a variant of Pepsi that was created as a limited edition tie-in to the second season of the X Factor TV show. It was released in 2012 and was described as tasting like dragon fruit. Pepsi Gingerbread. A gingerbread flavored variant of Pepsi? That sounds absolutely disgusting, in my opinion. In late 2024, Pepsi launched limited edition mini cans of Pepsi Gingerbread. It was only available through the TikTok shop and a giveaway on Pepsi's website. Kanye West. This entry refers to how Kanye West starred in a commercial for Pepsi in 2005. The commercial was officially titled Timeline and featured the celebrity walking past various landmarks. As Kanye moves, a trail of Pepsi visuals follow him. The ad features his song Heard 'Em Say from his newest album at the time, Late Registration. The commercial premiered during the 2005 MTV Video Music Awards. Pepsi Fire and Ice. In the mid-2000s, Pepsi released a promotion in Asia featuring two new flavors, Pepsi Fire and Pepsi Ice. Pepsi Fire was a cinnamon flavor, while Pepsi Ice was a mint flavor. The promotion was called Choose Your Own Adventure, which encouraged customers to try both flavors and decide which one was better. The promotion ended a few months later, however, that didn't mean the flavors had to be gone forever. In 2017, because of the success it had in the previous release, Pepsi Fire was released in the United States for a limited time. Pepsi Snackbot. Pepsi Snackbots are self-driving delivery robots that are designed to bring snacks and beverages to students on college campuses. They can travel up to 20 miles on a single charge, and they are designed to be able to travel through different terrains. Snackbots were first tested in 2019 at the University of the Pacific in California. Pepsi Apple Pie. A few years ago, Pepsi decided to release another abomination flavor, Pepsi Apple Pie, an apple pie flavored variant of Pepsi. It was released for the Thanksgiving season in 2020 and was only available through a social media contest. The contest was called the Pepsi Apple Pie Challenge, and fans were encouraged to post their baking fails on Twitter or TikTok. Thankfully, only 1,500 2-liter bottles were produced of the flavor. FBI involved in betrayal plot. This entry refers to an incident where a secretary who worked for Coca-Cola, along with two other accomplices, attempted to sell the Coca-Cola recipe to Pepsi for a total of $1.5 million. They originally contacted Pepsi under the pseudonym Dirk and offered to give internal documents belonging to Coca-Cola, along with a sample of a secret Coca-Cola flavor. Pepsi reported the secretary, and in turn, Coca-Cola called the police to set up a sting operation. FBI officers went undercover and posed as executives at Pepsi. They pretended to try to make a deal, and ended up arresting all three people involved. All three were indicted by a federal grand jury for conspiracy to commit theft of trade secrets. Cola Chup. Cola Chup. Pepsi flavored ketchup. This condiment was released on July 4th, 2023, and was only available for one day. Cola Chup was only able to be purchased in certain stadiums and ballparks. According to the senior director at Pepsi, Cola Chup was created in order to reinforce how hot dogs and Pepsi go well together. Beepus. This entry refers to a parody meme of Pepsi called Beepus. Beepus was first posted relating to Pepsi in late 2014 by a Reddit user called Sober Dreams. It was an edited picture of a Pepsi delivery truck made to say Beepus. Beepus as a meme became popular a few years later. Also, something that was a surprise to me was that Beepus was used as an error handling message in Undertale. Pepsi Peeps. In 2021, in collaboration with Peeps Marshmallows, Pepsi released a limited edition marshmallow flavor. I actually tasted this when it was re-released in 2023, and it was decent, but it tasted really sweet. Pepsi S'mores. Released in 2022, Pepsi S'mores was a collection of 3 flavors. These flavors include toasty marshmallow, graham cracker, and chocolate. The collection was only available through sweepstakes, where only 2,000 sets of the collection were distributed. The flavors received mixed reviews by critics. Pepsi NEX. Pepsi NEX. I might have pronounced this wrong, I'm not sure. But this flavor was released in Japan in 2006. It was a 0-calorie version of Pepsi and was released to cater to the growing demand for healthier soda in Japan. And all of that was just layer 2 of the iceberg. We have 3 more layers to explore, and everything is just gonna get more obscure and less known from this point on.
Michael Jackson fans can rest a little easier. The superstar was unexpectedly released from Broadmoor Memorial Hospital in Los Angeles this afternoon. Jackson had suffered 2nd and 3rd degree burns to the back of his head last night during the filming of a glittery TV commercial.
Michael Jackson incident. This is probably the most well-known Pepsi controversy, second to the Madonna controversy I talked about earlier in this video. Let's just start with the background. Michael Jackson and Pepsi began their relationship in 1983, with Michael Jackson signing a major endorsement deal with Pepsi, making him the spokesperson of their advertising campaign known as the Pepsi Generation. This was significant as he was one of the biggest pop stars at the time. 1 year later, during the filming of a Pepsi commercial in Los Angeles, Michael Jackson was performing a dance routine for the commercial. Effects such as fireworks were being used for the commercial, intended to be used as some sort of cloud or smoke effect. The pyrotechnics malfunctioned during Jackson's routine, and the flames got too close to his face, causing his hair to catch on fire. Jackson's scalp and face had severe burns, and he was rushed to the hospital. He later went through treatment for the burns, as well as surgery. Him and Pepsi reached a settlement for an undisclosed amount of money. Despite the incident occurring, Jackson and Pepsi continued to work together up until the 1990s. Pepsi Special. This entry refers to a unique variant of Pepsi that contains a fiber called dextrin. It was released in Japan in 2012. The manufacturer of the drink, Suntory, claims that dextrin in Pepsi Special reduces the absorption of fat during digestion. Kiss commercial. In the 2000s, as part of the Pepsi Generation marketing campaign, Pepsi launched a commercial that featured the American rock band Kiss. The commercial featured the band playing a custom-made song about Pepsi. During my research, I also found some interesting stories about the day of the filming of the commercial itself. On a website called kissasylum.com, there was a page that looks like it hasn't been touched for over a decade. The page was titled Kiss Pepsi Commercial Shoot Reports, March 9th, 2000. There were also some pictures on the page that seemed to be taken by the person who sent the story in. I was one of a couple hundred fans that was cast as an extra in the filming of the new Pepsi Kiss commercial, and all I can really say is what a night. We arrived at the Desert Sky Pavilion at around 5:15 p.m. They had a special area for us to sign in at, and once we signed in and had our photo taken, we were told to enjoy the catered food and snacks and all the drinks, Pepsi, and other soft drinks we could handle. We ate, and around 7 p.m. we were led down a path to the set, as they called it. Heaven is what I called it. The person who wrote the story then talks about meeting the members of Kiss. The end of the story says, well, this will be a night I will remember for the rest of my life. I wanted to include this in the video because it's a first-hand account of the shooting of the commercial, so it interested me. Bill O'Reilly boycott. In August 2002, Fox News host Bill O'Reilly started a boycott against Pepsi after the company featured Ludacris in an advertising campaign. The news host criticized Ludacris for lyrics he deemed promoted violence, drug use, and being disrespectful towards women. After this, Pepsi quickly cut ties with Ludacris due to the amount of complaints that Pepsi received. This incident received controversy as Pepsi later collaborated with Ozzy Osbourne, a musician known for his similarly explicit content. This concerned many people as this potentially was a double standard. In response to the concerns, Pepsi donated $3 million to Ludacris's foundation, as well as other charities. Pepsi Red. Pepsi Red was a limited edition variation of Pepsi that supposedly tasted like regular Pepsi, but with spicy ginger. It was released in Japan in 2006. This flavor was similar to another flavor I talked about earlier, Pepsi Fire. Pepsi Red was discontinued shortly after it released and hasn't returned as of 2025. Pepsi-roni. Imagine pepperoni, but it's infused with Pepsi Zero Sugar. That sounds like the nastiest thing Pepsi has made on this iceberg yet. Pepsi-roni was launched on May 20th, 2022 in collaboration with the Culinary Institute of America. Pepsi-roni pizza was made in New York, Chicago, Detroit, Miami, and Los Angeles. Reviews of the pizza were obviously mixed, as I don't think Pepsi and pepperoni go together, but I would be interested in trying it. Pepsi Holiday Spice. Pepsi Holiday Spice was a limited edition flavor first released for the 2004 holiday season. The unique flavor had a blend of cinnamon and ginger flavors, making the taste profile similar to other holiday treats. This flavor was originally available for 8 weeks near the end of 2004, but was brought back due to popular demand in 2006. What's surprising to me is that, despite its popularity, this flavor has not been re-released in almost 20 years. Pepsi Hot Chocolate. Released in early 2021, this was a limited edition flavor of Pepsi that supposedly tasted like hot chocolate. It was initially marketed as Coca-Cola, but was changed to Pepsi Hot Chocolate in order to avoid any legal issues with Coca-Cola. Shrek 2 collab. In 2004, Pepsi collaborated with DreamWorks for a marketing campaign that featured Shrek 2. The collaboration had specially marked packs of soda, which allowed people to get chances to win prizes. Many pieces of merchandise were created for this promotion, like t-shirts and bobbleheads. Pepsi Ghost. For Halloween 2015, Pepsi wanted to do something a little different. They unknowingly established an entirely new category of sodas, the mystery flavor. Pepsi Ghost was a limited edition Halloween-themed mystery flavor of Pepsi, released in Japan. People speculated about the flavor, with guesses ranging from chocolate to other types of candy. Unfortunately, the flavor of Pepsi Ghost was never officially announced, so it's just up to speculation. What's interesting is that I did some research, and I found that Pepsi Ghost is possibly the first mystery flavored soda, with the Mountain Dew Voodoo coming in as the second. Pepsi Strong Shot. This flavor was essentially regular Pepsi, but with much more added caffeine and extra carbonation. It was first released in 2010 in Japan, but discontinued shortly after. It was re-released in 2015, along with the zero sugar variant. These were sold in larger sizes and with a higher concentration of caffeine and carbonation. Another variation of Pepsi Strong Shot was released a year later, called Pepsi Strong 5.0 GV, which had so much carbonation that a new bottle had to be designed specifically for it. This is one of the more interesting flavors to me, and I'd be interested in trying it if it ever releases again. Pepsi Cracker Jack. Never mind what I said earlier about Pepsi-Roni, this is by far the nastiest thing that Pepsi has created. Released in October 2021 and thankfully limited edition, Pepsi Cracker Jack was a collaboration between Pepsi and the popular snack Cracker Jack. It was only available through a social media challenge where fans would post a video singing the popular song Take Me Out to the Ballgame for a chance to win one of 2,000 Pepsi Cracker Jack cans. Each can of this flavor came with an original peel-off temporary tattoo. Live for Now. Live for Now was a controversial 2017 short film commercial made by Pepsi, featuring Kendall Jenner. In the ad, people are seen protesting outside. Jenner's character, which I'll refer to as the main character from now on, is seen at a photo shoot. The main character leaves the photo shoot in order to join the protest. Several police officers are seen watching the protests approach them. The main character walks up to the officers and hands one a can of Pepsi. After the officer drinks the can, the crowd cheers, and that's basically the entire ad. The ad was criticized, mainly due to attempting to capitalize on imagery imitating protests in the Black Lives Matter movement. Soon after, Pepsi pulled the commercial from air and issued an apology. They stated that they did not intend to make light of any serious issues. Skinny can controversy. This entry refers to the backlash that Pepsi received in 2011 after introducing a taller and slimmer version of its Diet Pepsi can during New York Fashion Week. The marketing campaign was criticized for promoting unhealthy body image standards. Pepsi responded by saying that the new can variation was focused on style and innovation, and not on promoting a particular body image. They also stated that the intent was to specifically highlight the new can's design. Personally, I find this hard to believe, as why else would you release this during a fashion week, where you focus on people's bodies? Pepsi White. Interestingly, this flavor is actually 3 different flavors under the same name. Originally, Pepsi White was released in Japan around 2008, with it being advertised as a yogurt flavor of Pepsi. It was re-released in 2012 with a different flavor this time. It was described as a tangerine/orange variation. The final time that it was re-released was in 2015 under the name of Pepsi White Cola, which reportedly just tasted like regular Pepsi for some reason. Space Cola Wars. When people think of the term Cola Wars, they usually think about the rivalry between Coke and Pepsi. However, there was another type of Cola War that was going on during the 80s, just not on Earth. Of course, I'm talking about the Space Cola Wars. This began in 1985, where Coke and Pepsi spent tons of money on marketing campaigns and product tests in order to get their soda into space. Astronauts tested specially designed soda cans from the two companies in order to see how the drinks would behave in space. In the test, Coca-Cola's fluid dispenser can with an internal bladder performed better than Pepsi's modified shaving cream can. After this test, Coca-Cola continued to develop space-friendly soda dispensers. In 1996, Pepsi paid $300 million to film a commercial aboard the Russian Mir space station, which featured a giant version of the modified shaving cream Pepsi can. Pepsi also claims that this is the first commercial that was filmed in space. Pepsi Meow. Pepsi Meow is a limited edition variation of Pepsi, released in China. Pepsi Meow is available in two variants, regular and zero sugar. It has been speculated that this is just regular Pepsi in a special can, as people have noted that it resembles the taste of original Pepsi. The design of the cans feature cats, part of Pepsi's strategy to appeal to cat lovers. Guth v. Loft Inc. This entry refers to a landmark court case between Charles Guth and Loft Inc. In this video, I previously mentioned Charles Guth as the president of Loft Inc., a candy and syrup manufacturer. When Coca-Cola declined to give Charles a lower discount, he sought to purchase syrup from Pepsi instead. However, Pepsi went bankrupt before the deal went through, so Charles Guth bought Pepsi and its recipe, made a new formula, and began selling the syrup to Loft, aka his own company. The shareholders of Loft sued Charles, alleging that he breached his fiduciary duty of loyalty to the company by failing to offer the opportunity to purchase Pepsi to Loft and instead purchased it himself. The court ruled in favor of Loft, establishing that a corporate director can't take a business opportunity for themselves if, number one, the corporation is financially capable of going through the opportunity, number two, the opportunity is within the corporation's line of business, and number three, the corporation has an interest in the opportunity. Pepsi Christmas Cola. Pepsi Christmas Cola was a strawberry and whipped cream flavored variant of Pepsi, released exclusively in Japan in 2017. It was limited edition and themed around the holiday season, and it was discontinued at the start of 2018. Pepsi Cool Can Controversy. Pepsi Cool Cans were a series of promotional cans produced in 1990 for a Pepsi advertising campaign. These cans were created during the Cola Wars, and they came out at the same time as Coca-Cola's Magic cans were being discontinued. The cans were produced in 4 designs: confetti, sunglasses, neon, and motifs. The cans were designed to appeal to a teenage market and portrayed Coca-Cola as being for older people. This sounds perfectly harmless, right? Well, eventually, some people started to claim that when you stacked 2 neon cans on top of each other and they were aligned in a certain way, the design of the cans would spell out the word sex. A number of parents complained to the company about this. The complaints caused Pepsi to stop selling the cans, but the marketing campaign was moderately successful in the end. Talking Tom collab. This entry refers to an obscure collaboration between Pepsi and Talking Tom. All that's known of this collaboration so far is that a modified version of an existing Talking Tom game was created for it. The game that was modified in particular was called Talking Tom and Ben News. The gameplay was the same as the original, and the only thing that was changed was the background, which featured Pepsi branding. This version of the game is actually lost media. If you want to learn more about this, I recommend watching the First Gamer's video on this, as he goes more in depth about it. Yakisoba Pepsi. This entry refers to a flavor called Pepsi Zero Mint. This flavor was specifically designed to pair with yakisoba, a Japanese stir-fried noodle dish. The mint flavor of this variation is intended to complement the flavors of the dish. It was released in Japan as a limited edition flavor. Nintendo Pepsi DS. This entry refers to a console Pepsi made in collaboration with Nintendo. Launched in 2005, this console was a Japan-exclusive promotional campaign. This unique limited edition console was a blue Nintendo DS featuring Pepsi branding. The promotional campaign was for the lemon Pepsi flavor Pepsi Twist, which I talked about earlier. Due to its limited production, all of the eBay listings I found for this console listed the price as over $1,000, which is understandable since only 1,000 of these consoles were ever made. Confusing Pepsi campaign. This entry refers to a Pepsi advertising campaign launched in Latin America that was widely misinterpreted. The slogan of the campaign was "Los géneros son para la música, no para las personas," which translates to "Genres are for music, not for people." Because the Spanish word género means both gender and music genre, this led to mass confusion. Some audiences interpreted the campaign as a statement against the idea of multiple gender identities. Lobster controversy. In November 2017, a fishing crew discovered a lobster with what looked to be a Pepsi logo on its claw. The person who discovered the lobster noticed that the image appeared to be pixelated, suggesting that it couldn't have come from a can, but more likely some sort of Pepsi packaging or picture. St. Louis accident. This entry refers to an industrial accident that occurred in 2013 in a PepsiCo plant in St. Louis, Missouri. A man who worked at the plant became trapped inside a packing unit machine and was eventually pronounced dead at the scene. Police released no other details about the accident in particular. Time for the second to last layer. Pepsi number fever incident. In February 1992, Pepsi ran a marketing campaign in the Philippines called Pepsi Number Fever. During the campaign, Pepsi printed numbers on the inside of bottle caps in their products. Specific numbers would be able to be redeemed for large sums of money. The winning numbers would be announced every night. Initially, this campaign was very successful, increasing Pepsi's market share. All was going well until May 25th, 1992. On that day, a local news program announced that the winning number for that day was 349. Due to a printing error, Pepsi had actually produced almost 1 million bottle caps with the number 349. This meant that hundreds of thousands of people thought they had won large amounts of money. People rushed to Pepsi bottling plants in order to claim the prizes, but Pepsi told them that the bottle caps were no longer redeemable due to the printing error. Pepsi offered 500 pesos in compensation, equivalent to $18 for people who had the number 349 bottle cap. However, some people were not satisfied with this and believed that they deserved the full prize. These people formed a group called the 349 Alliance. The group organized boycotts and protests of Pepsi. Most of these protests were peaceful until almost a year after the incident, 2 people were killed by a homemade bomb that was thrown at a Pepsi delivery truck. A few months after this, 3 Pepsi employees were killed by a grenade that was thrown into a warehouse. Pepsi executives received death threats and almost 40 trucks belonging to Pepsi were damaged. Over 20,000 people took legal action against Pepsi for this incident, and the Pepsi number fever incident is considered one of the biggest marketing disasters in history. Pepsi Natural. This flavor was a healthier variation of Pepsi released in 2008. It was marketed as a sparkling cola drink with natural plant extracts. It contained naturally sourced ingredients that didn't have artificial flavoring, colorings, preservatives, or sweeteners. It was marketed as a natural alternative to other colas, but it was discontinued a few years later for unknown reasons. Stretched bottles. This entry refers to stretched glass bottles, which were usually given away as fair prizes in the 1900s. These bottles included other sodas, but some were Pepsi bottles. These look pretty cool, and it's really unfortunate how these aren't produced anymore. Pepsi 1893 series. This is a series of flavors of Pepsi which were introduced throughout 2016 and 2017. The series of the flavors used the original Pepsi formula created by Caleb Bradham in 1893. These flavors include original, ginger, currant, and citrus. Unfortunately, all of these flavors were discontinued by the end of 2017, which sucks because I would actually be interested in trying this. One very lonely calorie. This entry refers to a controversial advertisement created for Pepsi Max. The advertisement featured 3 images of some sort of bean-looking character, which is supposed to represent 1 calorie, along with him doing multiple suicidal things in the 3 images. This was quite weird of Pepsi, to say the least, and they faced tons of backlash for this. Cristiano Ronaldo controversy. This entry refers to a controversial marketing campaign created by Pepsi in Sweden. The campaign depicted Cristiano Ronaldo as a voodoo doll. The ads were intended to make fun of him right before the Portugal vs Sweden World Cup qualifying match. The images were posted on Facebook in 2013. Fans of Ronaldo were furious, calling it disrespectful, and eventually organizing a boycott of Pepsi products. Pepsi issued an official apology for the controversy, saying that they didn't mean to offend anyone and that the campaign was intended to be humorous. Pepsi Samba. This flavor was released in 2005 in Australia as a limited edition tropical flavor of Pepsi. This beverage was marketed as exotic cola and reportedly tasted like mangoes and tamarind. Pepsi Samba was discontinued shortly after it was released, reportedly due to mixed reviews, with some people finding the flavor unappealing. Condom found in Pepsi bottle. This entry refers to how in 2006, a man in India found a condom inside a Pepsi bottle. The man said that he purchased a few bottles of Pepsi and later fell ill after discovering dirt in a bottle he drank. The man found a condom in another bottle that he purchased, and the man complained. This led to a 3-year-long court hearing, and the court ended up asking Pepsi to pay 20,000 rupees to the man for physical illness and mental shock. The court also ended up fining PepsiCo India 100,000 rupees. Pepsi Gold. Pepsi Gold was a limited edition ginger flavor of Pepsi released in 2006. Pepsi Gold had a unique yellow color to it, which, in my opinion, makes it look like a piss bottle. Pepsi Camera. This entry refers to a Pepsi branded toy camera created in the 1990s. The camera had a very unique design to it, with it resembling a can of Pepsi. There was also a modern Pepsi camera released a few years ago. Pepsi partnered with a tech company called Retrospect to release a Pepsi branded Polaroid camera. Pepsi Shiso. Released in Japan during the summer of 2009, Pepsi Shiso was a limited edition flavor of Pepsi. This flavor was made to taste like the Japanese herb shiso. The beverage had a bright green color and a unique taste, and instead of being sweetened with corn syrup or artificial sweeteners like most sodas, Pepsi Shiso was sweetened with grape sugar. Unfortunately, this flavor was discontinued shortly after its release, cause this is one of the few flavors I would want to try on this iceberg. Pepsi Salty Watermelon. Pepsi Salty Watermelon was a limited edition flavor of Pepsi released in Japan in 2012. As it says in the name, this flavor tasted like watermelon with a hint of salt. It was well liked, but discontinued shortly after its release. Logo on the moon rumors. This entry refers to rumors that spread in Iran about how Pepsi planned to use powerful lasers to shine their logo on the moon. On the night of June 5th, 2012, thousands of people went outside to look at the sky in order to see the Pepsi logo appear on the moon. When nothing showed up, many people were disappointed. An Iranian journalist said this about the rumors. Almost all of my friends went to the north of Tehran to a mountain from which they had a good view of the city from the sky. They insisted I go with them, but I preferred to stay home and watch a movie. They took cameras and camcorders to get photos and videos, but when nothing happened, they started to have fun and drink Coca-Cola for revenge. I couldn't resist calling them fools, but they said yes, we're fools, but at least we had a great time together, and you missed it. Pepsi Pink. Pepsi Pink was a strawberry milk flavored variation of Pepsi, which sounds absolutely disgusting in my opinion. It was first released in Japan in 2011, but only available for a limited time, so it was discontinued shortly after. Pepsi flavored Cheetos. Yes, these surprisingly actually existed. Pepsi flavored Cheetos, officially known as Pepsi Shua Shua Cola Corn Snacks, were a limited edition snack that was launched in Japan in 2013. These Cheetos had a Pepsi flavored powder on regular Cheetos, and people who tried the snack reported that it had a strong citrus taste. Pepsi Green. Released in Japan during the summer of 2007, the brightly colored limited edition Pepsi Green was a cucumber flavor. It was unfortunately discontinued shortly after it was released. I would have liked to try this, as cucumber lime is my favorite Gatorade flavor, and I assumed they'd be slightly similar in taste. Pepsi Baobab. Pepsi Baobab was a limited edition flavor of Pepsi released in Japan in 2010 and discontinued later that year. This flavor was inspired by the baobab tree, known for its fruit that offers over 300 life-sustaining uses, giving it the nickname the Tree of Life. It reportedly tasted like citrus, cream soda, cinnamon, and tonic water. Some people said that it tasted similar to a less sweet Mountain Dew or ginger ale. Lebanon controversy. This entry refers to how in June 2024, a Pepsi bottler in Lebanon caused uproar in the country by allegedly redesigning the design of the Pepsi bottle caps. The new design of the bottle caps was reminiscent of the Israeli flag, having the same colors and patterns of the flag. On June 19th, an attorney filed a complaint requesting that the design be stopped from being produced, Pepsi to stop selling their products in the country, and that the company's representatives be investigated. Tampa accident. This entry refers to another accident that happened at a Pepsi bottling plant in Tampa, Florida, resulting in 1 death and 1 injury. Just before 1 a.m. on March 11, 2011, a crane collapsed at the bottling plant. The crane was undergoing maintenance when it collapsed on the 2 workers. 1 worker was dead at the scene, while the other worker had severe leg injuries. After all of that, it is finally time for the final layer of the Pepsi Iceberg Explained. Pepsi Paradox. This entry refers to the Pepsi Paradox, which is a phenomenon that states that Pepsi is preferred to Coca-Cola in the Pepsi Challenge, aka blind taste tests, despite Coca-Cola being the more successful soda brand. This basically means that people buy Coca-Cola because of the brand and emotional connection itself, and not the taste. However, there could be another explanation for this. Pepsi is sweeter than Coke, meaning that people might prefer Pepsi in a taste test where you only get to taste it once, but prefer Coke for regular consumption because of its more balanced taste. Russian missile debris hit a PepsiCo plant. On September 21st, 2023, fragments from a Russian missile hit a PepsiCo bottling plant located in the Kiev region in Ukraine. A fire was started by the fragments, causing partial damage to a warehouse and the production facilities. Workers at the bottling plant suffered injuries. The defense of Ukraine stated on Twitter that PepsiCo paid for the missile that caused damage to its facilities, since PepsiCo still operates in Russia, but under new brand names. Pepsi worm experiments. This entry refers to the fact that PepsiCo admitted to doing extensive work with mealworm powder, which are worms that are ground into powder. This comes from PepsiCo looking for new protein sources for their products. PepsiCo announced that they were looking for plant-based, insect-based, or fungi-based protein sources. The company said that they had already done extensive work with a number of protein sources and were no longer interested in them. These protein sources they did extensive work with include soy, cricket powder, and a mealworm powder. 9/11 reference on Pepsi can. In 2011, a photo circulated of a can of Diet Pepsi that allegedly depicted the Twin Towers with an airplane above them. The photo was taken in Iraq by an American soldier. Many people were outraged by this, and PepsiCo posted this on their Facebook in response. "We understand that the design of the can be misinterpreted, which was never our intention. The design is one of 2 Diet Pepsi cans designed for our Middle East/Africa region, which was created by a South African design agency to display the growth of active cities in that region. Thank you for taking the time to reach out to us. We appreciate it. We have taken action to change the design of the can." Some people called out for a boycott of Pepsi products because of this. Pepsi AM. Pepsi AM was a variant of Pepsi that contained 25% more caffeine than the original. It was marketed as a morning drink and was targeted towards coffee drinkers as an alternative to coffee. It was first tested in August 1989 in certain regions of the US. After a year of Pepsi AM being produced, it was discontinued for unknown reasons. Frog found in Pepsi can. In 2009, a Florida man opened a can of Pepsi. The man noticed something inside the can, which ended up turning out to be the dismembered remains of a frog. The man told CNN that he was taken aback by the disgusting blob he was not expecting in his drink. The FDA launched an investigation into how the incident occurred, but I couldn't find anything that came out of it. MLG meme was a Pepsi marketing campaign. This entry refers to a Reddit post that had an interesting theory. The Reddit post reads, back in 2014, the MLG meme consisted of no-scoping scrubs, dubstep, air horns, Doritos, and Mountain Dew. Doritos and Mountain Dew are Pepsi products. Maybe the meme was created or pushed by PepsiCo? To be honest, I found this post on Reddit myself, and I wanted to include it in this video as it's an interesting perspective. Pepsi Wild Bunch. The Pepsi Wild Bunch was a series of 3 flavors created in 1991. These flavors were Raging Raspberry, Strawberry Burst, both of these tasted like the name suggests, and Tropical Chill, which was pineapple and orange flavor. These flavors received generally mixed reviews and were discontinued shortly after their release. Pepsi Kona. Essentially, Pepsi Kona was regular Pepsi mixed with coffee. The name Kona references the Kona coffee from Hawaii. It was test marketed on the east coast of the US in 1996 and was discontinued only a year later because of low sales. Pepsi Summer Mix. Pepsi Summer Mix was a limited edition tropical flavor of Pepsi that was released in 2007 in the US. The flavor was discontinued later that year. According to some users of the Soda Wiki, Pepsi Mango, which was released in 2019, tastes very similar to Summer Mix. This is what one person commented. Absolutely. I was a kid when Summer Mix was out, but I loved it. I tasted the mango one and sure as sugar, I remembered Summer Mix clear as day. I feel like this one does lean more mango than Summer Mix did, but who's to say? Totally different taste buds now after all. 1993 Australian limited edition flavors. This entry refers to 3 flavors that were released in 1993 alongside each other in Australia. These flavors were Pepsi Chill, a cherry flavor, Pepsi Slam, a strawberry flavor, and Pepsi Rage, a raspberry flavor. They were limited editions released for the summer, so they were discontinued shortly after their release. Pepsi Ice Cream. It is finally time for the final entry on this iceberg. Pepsi Ice Cream was a limited edition flavor produced in Russia from 2005 to 2008. The flavor reportedly tasted like regular Pepsi but with a creamy vanilla taste. It was discontinued for unknown reasons. And that was the Pepsi Iceberg explained. If I didn't include a flavor or something relating to Pepsi on this iceberg, it's because I couldn't find much interesting information on it. Special thanks to Dan the Ferret for the idea for this video. I apologize that it took almost 2 years to do your idea, but hey, at least I got it done. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscribers before the end of 2025. Also, let me know in the comments about any ideas I should do for icebergs or just any video ideas in general. And as always, I will see you in the next video I make, and bye for now.